before we start, just a little guy.
What is this?
Kirschwasser from Austria. It's really fucking good. Can't buy it.
Where'd you get it?
Here,
Gifted?
Friend gifted.
It smells real fucking good.
Yeah, so we'll have a little rip off of that and we'll start. This stuff makes you hungry.
This stuff makes you hungry.
Welcome to Crying in the Walk-In.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Cheers.
Clink.
Welcome back to Crying in the Walk-In. Today we have with us Kyton Blair. He is the bar manager at Roquette, my boss. But he is also an agave mezcal aficionado, if you will. So today he's going to be talking to us about agave distillates, spirits, and mezcal. But before we get into that, let's start with your history in the industry, Kyton.
Ooh, I have been in some places. My first restaurant job ever was at Ray's Boathouse. Holla! Represent. Ray's is an institution in Ballard on the water. They do like 1,200 covers a day in the summertime, and I was a busser there. So that was my first restaurant job. I learned how to carry large trays of heavy things, and also prioritize and multitask like none other.
Yeah.
And so I started there, and then from there I went to Stoneburner, and
Also in Ballard.
And at Stoneburner I was a barback, and that's where I started to learn how to bartend.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some like really excellent mentors there. Tyler Stateman, Matt Collette, Ryan Lobe, and Nathan Lazarus are all very good bartenders, and they really taught me how to bartend. My life of living hell.
Yeah, sure.
Don't get it twisted.
Well, yeah, did you come up in kind of like the era of like hazing your barbacks and
yeah, most definitely.
Get the
like
ice, bitch.
just absolutely like fucked with me at every possible turn they possibly could. Which was great. But yeah, they were like the older brothers I wish I didn't have.
yeah. Well, also, I'm gonna thank them for training you up because now you're not my barback, but you helped to barback for me on Fridays.
Yeah.
And I love that you always joke around saying that you're the highest paid barback in the game.
Best paid barback you could ever have.
Let's go.
Like you turn around, the glasses are already there for what you're making. You're like, oh, I needed that, or your syrup's already refilled because
so
2 steps ahead.
So thanks to them for hazing you.
Because,
Hell yeah. Because we're here now.
So yeah, I had a great time there. So like kind of like learn the ropes there, and then from there I went to Damn the Weather, and that was like my first like official bartending gig. And I got hired there within like their first year of being open.
Oh, okay.
And they got a bunch of accolades. They were like top 5 new restaurants in America, and top like 40 new bars in America.
Wow. When
they opened. And when I first started there, the menu changed every day, which was crazy to say out loud now because like no one in their right mind would do that.
Yeah, but I can only think of one spot.
I would come to lineup, hour before service. My well would be set already, and I'd come to lineup and I'd be like, okay, here's your 6 new drinks that you're making today, and here's your 8 new food items we're doing today. Here's taste of everything.
Oh. You
have 20 minutes to set up your well accordingly. Go.
Jeez. That's crazy.
And so it was like really, it was nuts. And like, on Friday there'd be like a line of people waiting to get inside the restaurant. So that was cool. I learned a lot there. I learned a lot of classics there actually, which was really good.
Mm-hmm.
And also just like food costs as well, and like pairing things with the kitchen, because a lot of the cocktails were based off of the food items on the menu. That was kind of like the whole stick.
Whoa.
So they were using like the food waste from whatever food item was on the menu to then make a cocktail with it.
That's crazy. I never made it into Damn the Weather.
The Damn the Weather's still there. They're not. Their bar and food program is not nearly as intensive as it was.
Gotcha.
Back then.
Yeah. No, I've never been in, but I've had friends who work there. Plenty of friends who have worked there.
Yeah. Very solid spot.
Okay.
And then from there I went to Heartwood Provisions, who had a cocktail pairing for every food item on the menu, which is also pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
And like that was a 250 seat restaurant,
Yeah.
And the cocktails got fired with the food as it came out. So you'd be making your line of tickets for like martinis, your house cocktails, etc. An expert would come up and be like, I need 2 octopus pairings and a salmon pairing now. And so then you would have to be like, do I finish these drinks that I'm working on, or do I hustle and push out the pairings? Also, my bar manager at the time, beverage director, did not believe in pre-batching, so everything was a touch. So I counted the bottles I touched on a regular basis one night, and it was 93.
Jesus Christ. This is honestly mind-blowing because I've not had to. I mean, I've worked at places that don't pre-batch or do anything, and yeah, everything's a touch. But I've only worked in spaces that are like capacity, like 60 people.
Yes,
You know?
and like
I've
that
always been in small restaurants.
And that restaurant probably should have been a restaurant of like 62, maybe 100 people max, but it was 250. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But also worked with like a bunch of really amazing people there as well. And then I left there to then help Eric open up Roquette. So I've been at Roquette for a little over almost 6.5 years now. And I was the opening bar manager there with him. I helped paint the walls, do it.
And you met him because you were a regular at his bar at Zigzag, right?
Yes. So I met him because his current wife was actually a regular of mine at Damn the Weather, and then got introduced to him and was told he was the person to talk about mezcal. And so we only had like, when I started Damn the Weather, there's only like 2 bottles of mezcal we had on our back bar.
Yeah.
And Damn the Weather has a pretty small back bar anyway, but there's only 2 bottles of mezcal. And I was told if I wanted to learn more, I need to go talk to Eric.
Oh.
So, and then I started to go see Eric and sit at his bar maybe like once or twice a week and just absolutely harass him.
Yeah, I bet. I wish I had that opportunity. I missed that opportunity. But so was it at Damn the Weather that time, or at Heartwood when you realized you wanted more mezcal and more agave in your life?
Yeah, it was at Damn the Weather. And I remember we had some mezcal at Stoneburner, but it was never like a thing I was necessarily interested in. And then I started at Damn and started learning more about really going more in depth into spirits. Yeah. And we had some mezcal, and we had 2 like really good bottles, Nueva Soledad and then Fidencio. And I wanted more of it, and they're like, well, that's all we got. But if you want more, you need to go talk to Eric because Eric's importing it. He knows more.
Yeah, yeah. And then you took a couple trips down to Mexico now.
Yes, I've been to Oaxaca a couple of times now. I think 3 times now. Yeah.
Yeah. And did you actually get to meet distillers and stuff like that, or?
Yeah. Oh no. I've been to several of the towns that produce the mezcal. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So you've had a lot to drink. I also do love. So I think something that's interesting too is like we forget that we live in a specific market. Or I forget sometimes as like a consumer that I live in a specific market that only gets certain juices and certain bottles, whatever. And so it's amazing that you've had the opportunity to go try things that you just can't get here in the States, or like wouldn't have otherwise if you weren't probably there in person. But anyway, let's get into education.
Yeah, love it.
Today, I really want you to talk to me like I'm a baby, like I'm newly 21 and I don't know anything about agave. So let's start with the basics. What is mezcal, tequila? What are they made from? And what's the difference between the 2?
Yeah, so being bartender, talking to people a lot, people always think mezcal is smoky. Mezcal can be smoky, but not always so. No. But kind of the reason for there being any sort of smoke, and tequila, no smoke. So tequila, mezcal used to be made pretty much the same way. So they would take agaves, harvest them, chop them into what we call piñas, which is like the heart of the agave plant. Looks like a pineapple. You take those piñas, you throw them into a pit, and you cook them. And the reason for that is to break down the sugars or the starches into sugar so that you can use the sugar to make alcohol. So the higher the sugar content, the more alcohol, right? Which is why you're cooking the agave to get to that point. Tequila nowadays has been modernized. So they put most of these things into what we call like an autoclave or like a pressure cooker, where they can control every single bit of it and extract every tiny bit of juice they possibly can from these agaves. And kind of the reason they're doing that is to then just get as much alcohol they possibly can. Agaves take a long time to grow. So it's not like whiskey where you can harvest this like wheat, barley, rye, whatever, like once or twice a year, harvest it, distill it, throw it in a barrel and wait. The agaves take usually between 6 to all the way up to 35 years to mature.
Yeah, like 6 is like your espadine.
Espadine, and like Blue Weber is like 4 to 6 as well, which is what tequila is. So you have tequila, which 4 to 6 is 100% Blue Weber agave, and you have these giant fields of them. They mature between 4 and 6 years, right? So instead of waiting for all of them to be perfectly mature, anywhere between that range, they just harvest the entire field, throw them all into a pressure cooker, enclave, cook them, extract the juice, call it a day. Mezcal, same process, except they put it in the ground. And by putting it in the ground and smoking it, they're heating it up, they're breaking down the carbohydrates into sugar. Same process, except they're not using a pressure cooker that doesn't have any smoke involved, right? So if you harvest that entire field of agave for mezcal and you throw it all on the ground, some of these agave are going to be perfectly ripe, right? Because you have this like year window, several year window. Some of them are going to be perfectly ripe, some of them are not. So the ones that are not, you have to cook longer. So if you have to cook it longer, hence more smoke, smoky mezcal, bam. So a lot of like really good mezcal has little to no smoke because someone waited and hand-picked them all instead of just harvesting an entire field. They have, I wouldn't say the luxury, but they have the opportunity to pick the ones that are actually perfectly ripe and harvest just those ones, take them, cook them, and then distill.
Yeah.
So you ended up with a product that has little to no smoke. So a lot of people's first introduction to mezcal is the smoky agave spirit, similar to tequila. And it is similar to tequila, but it doesn't always need to be smoky. And another thing about mezcal is like the cost range is kind of like lopsided, I would say. So you have like your well mezcal, which usually is a little more on the smoky side, right? Which is usually like anywhere between, let's say, $10 to $15. And then you have your high-end mezcal, which is usually like $30 to $50 to say. There's not a middle ground, unfortunately. And so a lot of people aren't willing to spend the $40, $30, $50 to try the good stuff or the higher end stuff, but they want to try like the lower end stuff, or they've just only had it in a cocktail. And that stuff is usually the slightly smokier side.
Yeah.
And that's where that kind of thought process comes from.
Yeah, I mean, I remember at a college party one time, we were like, I played soccer in college and we would travel, and we went to a liquor store to pick up booze for the house party or hotel party we were gonna throw while we're out of town, and I think that was the first time I had Vita.
Yep.
And I remember carrying that bitch around the party, just being like, "This is my baby."
Yeah.
And I definitely liked it.
Yeah.
I was probably 21.
It's
legally,
super smoky, super sweet. It tastes like and smells like Korean barbecue.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. That's exactly what it is. But yeah, I remember carrying that around the party and being like, yeah, this shit is good, whatever. But then, yeah, now as I've grown up as a bartender, I've been like, oh, like that's really not your only option.
Yeah.
For mezcal, and I think I don't know if it was like a market thing back then, so that must have been what Vita was like.
Yeah,
everyone's first introduction.
There was a lot less on the market back then, and there was definitely a lot less for entry level mezcal, I would say.
Yeah, so I do think there's like a sweet spot of meeting people's expectations because they've only had these type of things, but also challenging their taste buds and their expectations by being like, oh, you can also get mezcal that tastes like a river rock, which is where I sit now. That's where I lay. And
or like a green fresh cut pepper. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's insane. What's the process for ancestral? So what's the difference? So there you have tequila, you have mezcal, you have a ton of different varieties of mezcal, but like what's the process for ancestral?
Yeah, so ancestral is the way they produced mezcal, hundreds of years ago, and I would assume tequila as well. Basically, it is everything done by hand. So the agave is harvested by hand. It doesn't go into a truck. It gets carried by a donkey. They take it, they cook it in the ground. They break it down. So a tahona is something used in tequila and mezcal or agave spirits. Basically, it's a giant stone that's usually pulled by like a donkey, or nowadays even like there's powered electrical, and it crushes the agave in like this stone pit, more or less. But for ancestral, they back in the day they just mashed stuff with like mallets, usually like in like a wooden shaped canoe. And they take that mash, they put it in an open tank, usually like wood, whatever the local wood would be, and they let it ferment outside. And then they distill it in clay pots. Ancestral, done like that, you lose over half of your batch of whatever you're making.
Oh wow.
Because it is not efficient.
Right.
But that is the only way that they knew how to do it back then. Some people still do it to this day. Sola de Vega is a village in southwestern Oaxaca that really, Sola de Vega does ancestral. It's a cultural thing. They love it.
Right.
It's fantastic. I've been there, middle of nowhere, beautiful place. And a lot of mezcaleros or producers will not do ancestral because you're harvesting a plant that took anywhere between 6 and 35 years to make or to grow, and then you're going to lose half the batch on it.
Yeah.
And some agaves are really big, some are really small. Espadin's a pretty fair size, but like Hoboli is really tiny. And so like a Hoboli plant, you maybe get like 2 liters out of. So you're going to tell me this Hoboli plant I waited 15 to 25 years to harvest. I'm going to get 1 liter out of it by making it like this. It's just not viable, especially when the demand for mezcal is so high. But that's why ancestral is so coveted and also kind of rare nowadays. It makes up less than 1% of all mezcal produced. So if you see a bottle of ancestral, it'll say it right on it.
Yeah.
Give yourself a taste. It's gonna be really earthy and really sweet. And it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah. The other one too that I didn't even think of before, but I'm thinking of now is Pachuga.
Yeah.
Because Pachuga was one of my favorites as well, or some of my favorite mezcals I've tasted.
Yeah.
When I first started drinking it, but I haven't had one in a while actually.
So Pachuga is kind of fun. So I've asked several people down in Oaxaca what started Pachuga, where did it come from, like why is this style? So Pachuga style is usually a bunch of local fruit and spices thrown into the pot of already produced mezcal. So they throw it in there, soak it, and then they usually hang a animal of some sort. So Pachuga means breast, so it's like a chicken. I've seen wild turkey, I've seen deer, I've seen iguana, I've seen bear. So basically any like animal, and they're kind of like fat washing this mezcal and letting it hang over this batch of mezcal, and then they distill it one last time, and it creates all these like beautiful secondary flavors and like richness and brightness to the mezcal. No, and it's usually done around the Day of the Dead as like a celebratory drink. So you can have Pachuga for like weddings, and deaths are usually the reason for Pachuga. And I asked my friend who's 5th generation mezcalero, where'd this come about? No idea. His theory of it was that a chicken, because you have open fat fermentation, and you have open vats of mezcal here and there, right?
Sure, just everywhere.
Yeah. And his theory is that a chicken fell into a batch of mezcal, and being, we don't want to waste anything, especially a giant batch of mezcal. So they distilled it another time to clean it out, right? And took chicken out, and then realized it actually tasted really good. And then they're like, well, maybe we do this now, and this is like for special occasions.
I hope that's true.
So that's my friend's theory. I don't know if it's true, but no one truly knows where the pachuga came from. But it is also quite delightful. It's definitely going to be like a little more rich and a little more floral than a lot of normal mezcals, but it's quite delicious.
Yeah. Okay, so then on that note, why are we calling it like a pulque distillate or agave? Like some bottles are labeled agave distillate or pulque. Pulque is usually just the beer, right?
Yeah. So pulque, the pulque plant, or the agave, it's a type of agave, and it can be distilled just like anything else, right? But usually for pulque, they take the plant, let it grow, and then they basically cut out the heart of it, and kind of the opposite of what they do for the mezcal, right? So they cut the heart out and leave the leaves there, and the leaves drain into the center of the plant and create like basically like agave kombucha.
Yeah.
And this was like the first kind of like iteration of like alcohol for that in Mexico.
Yeah.
So it was like predates mezcal. So they were like basically making this like fermented alcoholic agave drink. Mm-hmm. And it goes back into itself, and you can like scoop it out days after the plant has been chopped up. And like I said, it tastes like agave kombucha, and it has a bunch of really good probiotics. It's really good for you. And it has like
it's not very shelf stable though, right?
It is not. Yeah. Absolutely not. And
but that's the thing is, I don't think I've actually had real.
You can only have pulque there, and it lasts only a couple days.
Yeah,
because it keeps fermenting over time. So like when you first get the pulque, it's like super fresh pulque. It's probably at like maybe like 2 or 3% alcohol, maybe 3 or 4. And then as the time goes on, it ferments and gets funkier. And if you have pulque after like day 5 or 6, it tastes pretty funky, but it also gets you pretty drunk because it's at like 8% alcohol now. Yeah. So the reason for it being labeled that as a distillate is because that's like the agave plant for it. But it can be called mezcal because it's not been stamped by the regulator. So there are rules for mezcal. For something to be labeled as mezcal, it needs to be from a certain state in Mexico. I believe there's 7 states in Mexico that mezcal can be produced in, and then it needs to be approved by a regulator, which is basically an official to come out and say, taste it, test it, and say, yes, this is mezcal. You can bottle it as such and export it or whatever you want to do with it. Mm-hmm. So a lot of smaller brands will not pay for the regulator because it costs a lot of money to have them come out and confirm it. So they have gone to just calling it agave distillate. Another reason for that as well is because depending on where you are in Mexico, they might call a certain agave a different common name. And this is where things get really confusing. So mezcal is made up of 50 plus different agaves, and they grow all over Mexico. So some of them are really concentrated. So Oaxaca, the state of Oaxaca, has the highest concentration of like agave diversity for all of it. So they have like all these different ones. But you go town to town, they're going to call what we call a Mexicano, it could be called quiche here. And then quiche here is called biquiche over here. Tobaziche here is called largo over here. And so things start getting really confusing. So the regulator was like, hey, so we need to come up with like a set of regular names for all of these things so that us, the consumer here, actually know what we're actually drinking, right? And some of these people, some get upset and we're like, well, that's like what my family's called it for hundreds of years. I'm not going to call it that. I'm going to call it what we call it. Yeah. So then the regulator is like, well, I can't stamp this off as mezcal. Okay. So then they go, okay, we're still going to bottle it and sell it, but we're just going to bottle it for like what we call it. So my secret tip for this, and this is something that I've like learned when I was first like kind of trying to understand agave spirits, is if you can learn the Latin names of everything, you're never going to be confused of what you're drinking.
Okay.
So like agave marmota is tepezate.
Okay.
Agave agasfolia is espadin.
Whoa.
And
You're
there'll be
genius.
like different names for these depending on what states there are.
Sure.
But you'll always know exactly what type of agave you're drinking. And so yeah, so I've just tried to have learned as many of the common names that I see on bottles that are arrived stateside, so that I understand more what I am consuming, because tasting different bottles and different styles and different areas all can taste completely different.
Right.
But you still want like a baseline for what that plant's going to taste like.
Yeah. So while we're on this topic, the thing that I've been told, or that I'm growing into, is that agave, and I'm sure with other spirits too, but with agave, you can think about it the same way you think about wine,
Absolutely.
where there's like a ton of varietal of grapes, but then they also like, some are grown at higher elevations, and terroir and all that shit is very similar to what you're dealing with when you're talking agave.
Yeah, it's like the kind of the easiest comparison is like, for anyone that knows and loves wine, it's like, okay, Pinot Noir. Okay, great. Pinot Noir grows Burgundy, probably the birthplace of Pinot Noir. Beautiful. Pay hundreds of dollars for a premier cru Burgundy, right? Pinot Noir also grows in Oregon, and it's quite delicious. Does it taste different? Absolutely, it tastes different, right? But it still tastes like Pinot Noir at its base, right? And so if you can understand that, if you understand like what the base of these things taste like, then you can start comparing regions and styles.
Do you have a more favorite agave plant?
I really enjoy agave Karwinski. Agave Karwinski, there's a bunch of sub-varietals. And I didn't really quite understand that until I went down there and saw. And these plants are all look very similar to each other, but there's just minute differences in the way they look. And those minute differences obviously affect the flavor of the plant, the distillate. And it's because you can drive in Oaxaca. So in Oaxaca, it's high desert. And so you have all these beautiful valleys. And then you go through a mountain range and drive through this twisty road for like 20, 30 minutes. And you hit another valley. And this valley, let's say the first valley was like really beautiful, lush, green, almost like tropical. Next valley, maybe kind of arid, kind of dry, almost like desert-esque, right? Okay. Go over another mountain range, another mountain, drive. The next valley, filled with cactus, and like agave is like on cliff sides. And so every valley, mountain range, etc., is its own like microclimate. And because of that, these species of agave have all slightly like mutated to be slightly different. And at their core, they're like more or less the same thing, but depending on where they grow, they taste different. And so kind of my favorite is Agave Karwinski, so which falls in like categories of like Tobaziche, Largo, Quiche, Biquiche, Madre Quiche, and Barril, and they're all slightly different, and you kind of don't know which one you're gonna get. So it's kind of like the mystery flavor for like airheads. Yeah. Where you're like, it's gonna taste like an airhead, but like which which one is it gonna be? Like super zesty and like cedary and like lime zest, or is it gonna be like banana runts, like, but like that's the spectrum of that plant, which kind of just really makes it fun. So every time I see a new Karwinski of one of those, I'm always excited to try it, because I just don't know what it's going to taste like.
Do we get a lot of that up here, or I know we have a couple of those?
Yeah, so some of these agaves can be cultivated or semi-cultivated. Semi-cultivation basically means that you find a wild plant and take a clone of it And when you harvest the plant, you take the clones that you harvested and plant it around it, because you're like, okay, the mother plant liked this area, so we're going to plant like 5 babies roughly in this area and then hope that they take and thrive, right? It's a very long experiment because a lot of these plants take anywhere, years. You're looking at like a 15-year window to figure out if that works or not, right?
I know for sure I have zero patience to be a mezcalero, I tell you what.
So some agave cannot be cultivated or semi-cultivated. They only grow in very specific areas. And so because of that, you see less and less of it, and they take a long time to grow. So we have a fair amount of the.
So that leads to like the dangerous job part of that too. Agave is growing in like cliffsides that people are like.
Yeah, they, tepezate, which is a delicious agave. If you've never tried it, see a ball of tepezate on a bar.
Yeah.
Buy yourself a pour. Buy yourself an ounce of it if they will. It's usually kind of expensive. You're probably looking at like $30 to $40 depending. It is the longest maturing agave, and only grows in the wild. And it likes to grow on the sides of cliffs. It takes anywhere between 20 to 35 years of maturity to grow. They, to harvest these agaves, will tie themselves to something on the top of the mountain and will scale down and then cut the agave off the cliff and let it fall down the mountain and then go pick it up at the bottom.
But they have like someone down at the bottom to be sure nobody else gets their hands on it, correct?
So agaves are very sacred.
Yeah.
Very sacred. Like, you can go to jail, you can end up dead if you steal someone's agave. And agave grow all over the place. So if you go to Oaxaca City, you'll be driving down the street and all of a sudden there's just a giant Karwinski or a Tobalad is sitting there in the square. And you're like, well, anybody, what are we doing with this, right? Yeah, we should probably turn that into alcohol, right? Like, come on. But if you do that, and everybody's watching everything, if you do that, you could end up in a lot of trouble because it's like public space, and they respect it. And so another kind of fun fact about agaves that a lot of people don't know about actually is they are pollinated by bats.
Yes.
So they're pollinated by bats. When the agave ends its life cycle, there's a giant shoot that comes out of the heart of agave. And it's called a quiote. When the quiote happens, the agave usually has about 6 months to a year to live. And it transfers all the sugar that's been in the heart of the plant to the top of it for nectar, so the bats can then pollinate it. Really, really cool. So mezcaleros usually leave about like 5% of their crop that they won't harvest so that the bats can pollinate and create more wild agaves. It's really, really beautiful and really cool. So these plants in these like public places are usually reserved, and they're not meant to be harvested for mezcal whatsoever. And yeah, you could end up in jail or much, much worse if you tried to steal one.
Gotcha.
And so yeah, you'll be driving around and you're just like, oh my God, there's this beautiful giant agave in the square.
Yeah.
Like, what? And they're like, no. That stays there. That's there for a reason. It's for the bats, and it's also to help, for the agave to continue on. Because if they harvested all of the agave they have, then there'd be less and less and less and less, and then eventually we would run out, unfortunately.
Yeah. Are there any shortages on Blue Weber?
So there's quite the opposite. So, in the 90s, tequila craze hit the United States, and we went nuts for it. Loved it. Woo, yay!
Tequila.
Hell yeah, let's go, Patron. And so the demand was through the roof, and they harvested fields upon fields upon fields of Blue Weber agave to facilitate tequila. Mezcal was always kind of like a meant for like your friends and family, and it was something to like be made so that you can like drink alcohol year round, much like Armagnac in France. And so the mezcal industry almost tanked and like completely went broke.
Yeah.
And so they started ripping up their fields of agaves, of espadines and whatnot, and started planting corn and also Blue Weber to facilitate tequila.
Okay.
Fast forward to now, where I can't even, thousands upon thousands of acres have been planted in Blue Weber, and the tequila consumption is not meeting what they have planted, and now they have an absolute surplus of Blue Weber.
Gotcha.
Which is kind of crazy to think about right now.
Mhm.
And tequila is still very popular. Agave spirits are still very popular, but they planted too much, and so now they're kind of sitting on it.
Let's just go into why was there a worm in
Oh,
the mezcal bottles that our parents were drinking, and is that still a thing, or is that like
no. So
a marketing tactic?
so much like
The cat is out.
Hendrix,
Hey, baby.
you're so cute. Okay, so focus, Kyton. Focus. There's a
Yeah.
cat.
There's a
Focus.
cat.
Focus. It's
She'll
fine.
be there when you're done.
Yeah. So yes, the agave in the bottle of mezcal was definitely like a marketing tactic. Similar, slightly similar to the chicken falling into the vat of mezcal for pechuga.
Yeah.
The worm is actually a moth larva.
Okay.
Yep. And that moth grows inside of the agave plant. So that larva lives inside the agave plant. And
Oh.
so similar to what we call sal de gusano,
Mm-hmm.
which is a traditional like salt, pepper, ground up larva like spice that we use to season cooking in Oaxaca, but also use it as like a kind of like the salt that you would do for like tequila.
Mm-hmm.
They use that as a like kind of a sidekick chaser to mezcal. So like traditionally like sal de gusano, like a orange. They have slightly different oranges down there. They're a little more acidic, and then that, and then you do your shot. So the larva in the bottle was a like kind of a marketing tactic, but also is something that is um, symbolic of agave down there. So back, in the 80s, 90s, that was like a symbol of what like mezcal was. And then fast forward several years, bad mezcal being made, trying to get sold to tourists. They would sell it, put the worm in it,
Yeah.
and that is also part of the reason why mezcal got a bad rap, unfortunately. And so that worm is still part of like the mezcal culture, I would say, down there, but just in a different way. It's not in the bottle, but it's side like a accoutrement that you can have to enjoy mezcal. Also, another fun fact is the worm salt, the sal de gusano, is fantastic. Highly recommend it if you have a chance to taste it with your mezcal. They also do ant scorpion. Didn't start out as a marketing gimmick, but then ended up as one. And now I would recommend like avoiding if you see mezcal with something in the bottle. You don't want that one. Now it's still, like I said, like the sal de gusano. If it's an option, I would highly recommend trying it. Throw a little bit on the orange slice and enjoy a little sip of mezcal.
Okay, that was the other thing I was gonna ask. So a lot of guests will come in and order mezcal, or sometimes even tequila, but agave, and be like, "Can I get the orange slices?" And like, I think like for us traditionally, it's like, "Oh yeah, can I get a lime with my shot of tequila or whatever?"
Yes.
So when you hear somebody order like an orange slice, do you assume that they kind of like have a little more experience?
I think they've experienced mezcal in some sort of form and want it. Hopefully, ideally, you have like a sip of your mezcal and then enjoy the orange, because it brings out a lot of like the citrus notes in the distillate, which is really fantastic. Versus like classic Americans doing a bump of salt off of your hand, throwing back a shot of tequila so you can't taste it, and then throwing a lime in your mouth because it tasted so bad.
Yeah,
versus the idea of like the worm salt or like the orange is to like enhance all the flavors that are in there. So like the worm salt enhances like any of like the earthiness or the minerality in the mezcal, and then the orange brings out any of these like beautiful like floral flavors. So yes, when someone orders that, I'm like, okay, cool. Like you've had this before, but then I'm also hoping that they don't just like throw back this mezcal and they can actually like enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Also, while you're touching on how to drink mezcal, what are the little?
Oh yes,
What are
the copitas.
Yeah, and why are they?
Copitas are the traditional vessel for drinking mezcal.
Mhm.
So I would say there's probably like two very solid forms of copitas. So you have like clay copitas that they have forged themselves, or glass copitas. So traditionally they made clay copitas, and having that clay on the outside when you drink your mezcal adds a lot to the earthiness and brings out a lot of these secondary flavors. It's really, really beautiful.
Yeah.
So if you ever get your chance to get a very traditional like clay copita from like Oaxaca or the surrounding area, highly recommend it because it's going to add to your overall like flavor experience of drinking mezcal. The other copita is this like tiny little glass like candle votive looking thing. It looks like a candle votive because it is.
Okay.
So if you've ever seen one of these, you see like there's a cross on the bottom of all of them. There's a cross on the bottom of these because they were candle votives for the Catholic Church when they were settling Mexico. And so the locals didn't have access to glass, and so they would steal these candle votives and use them to drink, which is really fun. So all these traditional uh, copitas have a cross on the bottom as a remembrance to the Catholic Church, which is still very, very big in Mexico, obviously, and also a remembrance of how that came about.
Yeah. Fascinating. Okay, cool. I didn't know that. Yeah, I feel like it's interesting too. I have served people who are really confused about them. Copitas.
Copitas, yeah.
Yeah, they're like, why is it like this short little drinking glass?
Because it used to be the candle votives
Yeah.
we like, oh, I'm gonna go pray.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go pray, and then I'm gonna steal a candle votive or two and go to the bar and have them filled with mezcal.
Yeah. Also, I don't travel very much, or haven't gotten the experience to. And I think like I've kind of oversimplified like the drinking culture in Mexico. Like I'm like my assumption is that it's just beer and agave.
Yeah, that's pretty spot on. So Oaxaca, if you ever gets a chance to go, highly recommend it. It's beautiful. It's very isolated.
Okay.
Um, so they have a beautiful food scene there, and obviously like agave distillate scene as well. Every year in July, they actually have more or less like the state fair, but for all of Mexico comes to Oaxaca.
Oh.
They have this giant stadium on the hill that's only used for these events, and it'll be the best of the best. It'll be like the best agave spirits, the best tacos, the best like cornmeal, the best whatever. But like think of what we have like as the Puyallup Fair, but think of that for all of the country of Mexico comes to Oaxaca for like over a week and does the best of the best in the stadium.
That's
It's
crazy.
wild.
Have you been there during that time?
No, I really
gotta go.
really
We
want to
gotta
go.
go.
Really want to go. Tickets are really expensive because
Yeah, I'm sure.
Oaxaca is not very big, really small. That being said, they have an incredible food scene. So like the food scene there is really starting to take off, much like Mexico City. And with that food scene comes cocktails as well. So there are some bars definitely working towards like more cocktail centric items to pair with all this food. But yes, ideally, once you get out to anywhere past the city, it is just Mexican beer and agave distillate.
Mm.
That is it. That's what they're drinking. But you'll like have a sip here or there, have a conversation, look back down, and your copita's filled again, and you're like,
Who did that?
How did that happen?
Yeah,
How
yeah.
did that happen? Like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
And then you like kind of shrug your shoulders. You're like, okay, yeah, don't mind if I do.
Yeah, I guess I'm still drinking.
Guess I'm gonna have some more of that. That's wonderful. Hopefully it's the same one. If not, who cares?
Okay, before we move away from Mexico entirely, do you have any fun drinking stories from when you were down there?
Ooh, if you go down there, you can go to the Oaxaca City, beautiful. We go out to the Palenques, to these places where the agave is like produced and made, right? They will keep pouring you mezcal until you can't have it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Plain and simple. Like they want to sell you mezcal, right? And they know, right? Like the pesos in hand right now. Fuck yeah, let's go, right? Versus like them selling to even like their producer, they're gonna get a X amount just because like that's just how it works as far as like the chain goes, right? Like mezcaleros sell to the importer sells it to the distributor sells it to us, bam, 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 right? There's like 4 or 5 people that need to touch it in order for it to like get to actual consumers, right? Versus like you go out to the Palenque, which is what the distillery is called in Oaxaca. If you go out to the Palenque, you're one-on-one with the mezcalero, and they're like, yeah, $40 for a liter, and you're like, $40 for a liter of this thing that would cost me, $200-$300 for $750 here. You're like, that's the best deal ever. And him in the back of his mind or her mind is like, ha, this sucker, I'm gonna take this gringo for what he's got, right? And also they know that if keep on filling the copita mezcal, probably gonna buy more.
Yeah.
So highly recommend getting out there, but also know that they will pour you mezcal until you cannot stand. So this is the lead up for this story. Went out there last time.
Yeah.
And I was told by my friends who work for a mezcal company that we're going to this place, and we're going to this place that does not produce mezcal for them, but this is their favorite mezcal producer.
Mm-hmm.
And told me to bring all of my pesos. Okay, great, love that. And they also then warned me, Kyton, we're probably gonna get pretty drunk, so just be careful. And I looked at them and I was like, wanting to laugh because I'm like,
I'm a professional.
absolute
Don't
professional.
even.
I can drink a lot. I can drink a lot of mezcal, especially. Like,
Yeah.
I've been training my entire life for this mission.
Yeah.
Finally, boss fight.
Yeah.
Let's go, right? And we got to this place I've never been before. And we sit down, and he brings out maybe like 10, 12 bottles of mezcal. And we sit down, we start talking, and it's all ancestral, which we covered earlier, which is absolutely crazy. I've never seen a producer just only do ancestral.
Yeah.
And he also does something called capone. So capone is something where we talked about when the agave is at the end of its life cycle, the plant will shoot up the stalk in the middle called the quiote, and it takes all the sugar for the bats, and the bats take it and repopulate the agave plant, right? Well, if you cut off the quiote, all the sugar comes back down into the plant, and it actually makes the plant a lot sweeter, but you also risk the plant like dying and kind of fermenting. So in order for you to make capone, you have to have all the plants perfectly ready at the same time, which is really, 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 really hard. And if you mess it up, the plant will die and you won't make any mezcal.
Yeah.
So a lot of mezcaleros won't even fuck with it because they're like,
it's too risky.
It's too risky. This guy gets to do it because he has 4 uncles that all are mezcaleros and all have agave fields.
Mm-hmm.
So he only buys capone from them so he can make the very small batches of this mezcal. Insane.
Yeah.
So I'm tasting a very, very difficult thing to make as far as ancestral, and I'm tasting, on top of that, it's capone, which is a crazy style of making mezcal.
Yeah.
And we're drinking, I taste all of it, and he just keeps refilling my copita with things. I remember I went to the bathroom and I came back and my copita, which I brought with me because you want to bring your own copita with you, because if you don't, they're going to give you a very big copita. You don't want a very big copita.
I've never seen anything bigger than.
Yeah, so the copita they gave me, which he was laughing at, was the size of my head.
Oh my God, I'm gonna Google this.
And had filled it with Tobaziche, which is my favorite.
Right.
And so I have a video of me enjoying the mezcal and like kind of doing like a panorama of everything. And you see my eyes and they go from, okay, Kyton's there having a good time, to just like thousand mile stare, like
he's still okay.
kind of not there anymore.
Yeah.
On this video. Fast forward to us becoming very good friends and us going to his favorite food restaurant down the street. Me buying, I think I bought 13 liters from him. I was only supposed to be gone for like 3 or 4 hours because my partner was at the hotel, like enjoying like kind of like a pool day, to then me coming back like 10 hours later,
Yeah.
absolutely hammered with a giant box of fucking mezcal.
Yeah, kind of.
And
I
then-
mean, that's easy to do, though. That's easy to do.
It could have happened
to
to
find
anybody. It could have
yourself.
happened to anybody. It was-
Yeah.
yeah, we drank this like this roadside like like restaurant out of fucking beer at the end of the night.
That's beautiful.
And yeah, I got dropped off at my hotel, so drunk.
That's
And
so beautiful.
I like talked to my friends the next day, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's pretty much what happens every time." And I was like, "That's fucked up." And I was like, "They're like, we know, we tried to tell you." And I was like, "You didn't tell me enough." Like,
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, no,
I want to
was-
see the. Oh, you have to show me the video later.
Oh, it's Sam. It's fucking hilarious because like you see the light go out of my eyes.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, oh,
And he's gone.
and
now.
he's gone, and he's gone. He's like, oh yeah, like oh we're still there, but lights are on, but no one's home. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. And then, so I had a question. Do you only have one agave tattoo?
Yeah, I just have a Tobaziche, on my arm, which is like my favorite. So Tobaziche, part of the Karwinski family. It's a tall, kind of like almost like tree-like
Yeah.
agave. So tall, skinny, and has like little to no sugar in it. And because of that, it creates like a very like dry, mineral-driven,
Mm-hmm.
woody
Mm.
agave distillate. So like if you've ever been to Home Depot,
Yeah.
it'd be like the equivalent of walking through like the like lumber section of Home Depot while like someone like zested a lime in your face.
Okay. I like that.
And that's Tobaziche.
Also, the smell of so this is total aside. My dad always worked in lumber yards growing up. So that like that description did hit home for me. I'm like, I know not just Home Depot, but just like that smell
That
of that
smell.
wood. Oh my God, it's
It's so good. Yeah, it's so good.
yeah.
It's my favorite. Yeah, every time I go to Home Depot, I just walk through the
You're
lumber
like,
section. Just
I need a
'cause
shot of mezcal.
it just smells good. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, no.
Listen.
Do you usually we wrap up with if our guests have any crying in the walk-in stories? Have you ever wanted to cry on shift? Have you cried on shift? Have you reached big emotions at work before?
I've definitely had my moments.
Slash, or just like what silly things do you do in the walk-in? Have you done?
Oh fuck.
Sorry.
Yeah, I do have some silly. I'll give you one very serious one with the. We'll end with the silly because that's just more.
Sounds perfect.
That's just more fun. Yeah. So. Yeah. So I remember one day I had to work a very hard shift at a very big, busy place by myself, and had to go into the walk-in to get something, and just fucking let loose in there, just screamed at the top of my lungs and just cursed all the things. And I came back out and I had my head chef standing there and my sous chef standing there. I'm like, hey guys, what's up? And they're like, they looked at me. They're like, are you okay? I was like, yeah. Why? What? Like, what's going on? They're like, Kyton, you do realize the walk-in's not soundproof.
Yeah.
So then I had to tell them what was going on.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, how do you like your steak cooked? And I was like, medium rare. They're like,
Yeah.
let us know when you want us to fire it. And I was like, thanks guys. That was a pretty funny one. But also, yeah, I was very, very mad.
You were trying to act so cool. You were like, nothing just happened. What are you talking
What
about?
are you talking about?
We
Like, guys,
heard
what's
everything.
going on? And they're like, hey, it's not soundproof. I was like, oh,
Not even a little
I
bit.
didn't know that. I thought it definitely was.
Yeah.
Fuck. What else? What else have I said in there that I didn't hit?
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
Like,
you were like, shit.
I was like, oh no.
Looking back now, I've made a
that
grave
giant metal
mistake.
box isn't soundproof. That's bullshit. We need to send that back. It's faulty.
Get a new one.
A new one immediately. The other silly thing that I done in a walk-in / got caught doing in a walk-in, unfortunately.
Mhm.
Fortunately, how you want to look at it. I was working at a bar restaurant, and in the summertime, it got very, very hot.
Yeah.
And I was forced, my uniform was like,
You run pretty warm in general, right?
I'm uncomfortably hot at all times.
Yeah.
And the outfit was like, very, very traditional restaurant. Where it was like blue jeans, black leather shoes, and a full white button-up.
Mhm.
Okay, great, sure, whatever. But this place didn't have any AC whatsoever. It was also an open kitchen.
Oh.
Also, just hot as balls because there's no air circulation whatsoever. There's a single ceiling fan, just like please end me, please. Yeah, in the entire restaurant, and it's 100 plus seats. Okay, so dinner time, bar back, hot as all hell, just dying. Like, okay, went in the walk-in, and I'm also wearing a full apron as well, like bar apron, right? So I went in the walk-in and just like took my pants down, like not my underwear, but like took my jeans down.
Oh yeah, to air out,
just
dry out.
just standing there, right? And I have my apron on still as well, but pants around the ankles. As I'm doing this, I don't think this is at the end of the night, so like the only person I thought was with me was the bartender who was like closing the spot, right? That's it. The head chef walks into the walk-in and just looks at me and goes, the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, you're like, how do I explain this right now? Like, I'm just hot. I'm just warm.
He looks at me and says like, yeah, what the fuck are you doing? I was like, I'm just really hot. And he goes, uh-huh. Turns around, walks away, turns off the light in the walk-in, and locks me in there.
No way. How long were you locked in there?
Oh, about like 20 minutes.
You did get hazed.
About 20 minutes before the bartender realized that I wasn't there anymore and that the bartender needed me to do something, and they're upset I wasn't there.
Yeah, you're
and
like,
then
but I'm locked.
And then came searching for me and found me locked in the walk-in, and then asked me why I was locked in the walk-in, and I didn't want to tell them.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
And then
I wouldn't even say it on a podcast right now. No,
no. And then I didn't tell them. And then the next day, the head chef told everybody in the restaurant and caught me with my pants down in the walk-in, which was wonderful for me, and he thought was fucking hilarious.
Is that when you quit? Did you quit immediately?
No, I stayed there.
Wow.
I know.
I'm proud of you, honestly.
Fucking tough cookie.
Yeah. That's fucking insane.
Yeah.
I love that story.
That was a fun one in the walk-in. And there was like at that time there was like a girl that I was like trying to like flirt with. She was like one of the hostess.
Not now.
And then
Not
he
now.
literally
Not now.
he went up and told her personally in front of me.
Yeah, not now. It's over between you two now.
He walked up and was like, "Hey, you know what I found? I found Kyton pantsless in the walk-in last night. Yeah,
That's
what a jabroni, am I right?" And then just turned and walked away and looked at me, and I was like, so embarrassed.
That is
24-year-old Kyton was just like devastated.
Little baby. That's actually kind of one of the funniest walk-in stories I think I've heard. That is so. Cool. Well, thank you for joining me on my sofa to talk about agave. So thank you for coming by and actually like me getting to sit down and listen to this spiel and not be like
in the well listening to it.
Hell yeah.
It's good stuff.
Absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah. If y'all have any questions, y'all know where to find me.
Yeah. Next time we'll have, so for anyone who's still listening to this
If you haven't tuned out yet,
yeah. Kyton is also partners with Caroline, who is our bar bathroom guest. So maybe we get the two of you on here together and actually do a rager of an episode where we're all drunk. Kylie can be here too. They were at a birthday party today, so they couldn't be here, but yeah. Cool. We'll have both of you on.
I love that. Yeah.
Because you two are the cutest. All right. Okay, bye. Bye. Oh, don't forget to drink water.
Thanks for listening to Crying in the Walk-In with Sam and Kai. Check out our website at cryinginthewalkinpod.com. Check out our Instagram, cryinginthewalkin_pod. Thanks for listening. Make sure you drink water. Love you. Bye.